Howdy, fellow movie fans, and welcome to this special review edition of the Wisco Movie Watchers podcast. I am your host for the day, Evan Davies, and I am flying solo during this review of the new film, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which just hit theaters, and I just got out of my showing of it, and I want to share some thoughts with you. If you have seen my 28 Years Later review for just the original film, I guess, which this is kind of like a duology in the sense that it's part of a series, but it's a two-part entry with 28 Years Later and 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. This is almost an addendum, or not even an epilogue, just a continuation of the story, and it does set up some big things here. What's really interesting, if you saw that review, or you heard that review, you will know I was very, very high on 28 Years Later. I think it's one of the best films of 2025. I think it's an absolutely magnificent piece of the horror genre and playing with the idea of what is truly horror and going into psychological thriller terms as well there, because it's playing with you so much throughout. And The Bone Temple takes a completely different spin, which is extremely refreshing, but at first takes you by surprise a little bit. So if you haven't seen a review of ours before, I want to let you know I'm not doing any spoilers in this. I want people to go see these films for themselves. I give my thoughts, and I let you decide if you want to go to the movie or not. That's as much as I can give you. I used to do a lot of spoilers at the end of a video, but I don't think it's super worthwhile. Let's be honest, we can all pretty much discern a lot of endings to films by ourselves, even before the film even comes to our eyes. But what's really cool, in moving past kind of that housekeeping stuff, is there are such great thematic works in this film. And in 28 Years Later, you had the story of a father and a son, and the lessons that he's taught his son, and then how does that impart when his son goes off on his own to help his mother. And the choices that character Spike makes to survive out in the wild that is infested with zombies. What does that mean for Spike? Now we're seeing the continuation of Spike. So I'm going to just put this spoiler warning. It's for 28 Years Later. It's not for The Bone Temple. So very quick spoiler. At the end of 28 Years Later, 3, 2, 1, cool. I know the irony of what I just said versus what I'm about to say. At the end of 28 Years Later, we find Spike pseudo-rescued by this group of all blonde-haired, weird parkour ninja people in tracksuits called Jimmy. They're all called Jimmy. Now, we see what Jimmy really is. We really see who those people are, and their leader, Jimmy, Jimmy Crystal, as he's known in 28 Years Later, so that's the end of the spoiler territories. Jimmy is somebody who is a cult leader, and you're seeing what happens. We first open with a very, very intense scene to see if Spike's even going to survive, which is immediately takes you away from, oh my god, I'm going to see all this zombie craziness. You're not. You see far more of the psychological terror of what does it mean to live in this world when humans are more evil than the zombies themselves. And obviously that's always been a bit of the tale in this franchise, but at the same time, this film really goes into it, to the point where I don't think this is a huge spoiler. The zombies become the second level threat. They're no longer the biggest threat. The biggest threat is the remnants of humanity and how they've made it. And that's a really cool place to be in, because you see the ramifications of what this rage virus and what this world has become. Even as 28 Years Later did, it was really a father and son coming of age movie, and now you're getting to see the ramifications of coming of age in this. And it's very much an intense experience to have, and I really appreciate it, because you're getting these. It's a really fun dichotomy of tone where we follow Dr. Kelson, known as, which is played by Ray Fiennes, and he's really trying to find his purpose in the world once again, and working with zombies in a different way than you might expect, versus Spike, who's trying to make his way in this kind of group cult thing because he's afraid and he's alone and he wants to be safe. One thing I can certainly tell you is the gore does get a bit much, from the sense it's human on human gore. It's not, it's one of those things where gory from a zombie take, yeah, like, don't get me wrong, some people can't handle that much. I know many people in my life who can't handle that much, but there's still that veil of, I know this isn't real because I know zombies aren't a thing. When you see a human attacking, harming, or even possibly mutilating somebody in such a visceral way on screen, it's really tough. And it really paints the picture of what we're trying to do in this movie. And it's really, really interesting. I think Nia DaCosta and team do a really good job of showcasing the horror of those moments. And it's something that I very much appreciate in the film, because I was kind of like, oh my god, that's so much. Do I need this? Do I need this? And at the same time, it really hits home the point of what you're trying to do, but it never goes to the point where you're like, my god, dog, please, stop, And I really appreciate that. The imagery of this film is super powerful, and it builds throughout the movie to the point where the first act is impressive, but it's far more, I don't want to say down. It's far more, it's far calmer than you'd expect, and it ramps up. And the second act takes hold, and the second act is quite good. But the third act really is a wonderful finish, because you get to see kind of the fun of this genre, where you can play in it so much because everything makes no sense, which means you can make anything make sense, which is really cool. And the imagery at the end is bonkers good and so much fun. But at the same time, all the imagery also paints into all these wonderful themes that we're talking about. Like, this film goes into such good conversation of what is the human condition under isolation, and what is character to a human being. What is their character under isolation? And we're also dealing with these wonderful themes of image and ego and self-worth, where we tie it up in so many different ways. And what does it mean to be isolated and then still have to think about ourselves? And that's a really cool place to be in with this film. And then obviously we get a lot of great religious imagery and fanaticism through this. I just said it's a cult. We already saw in 28 Years Later, it opens with a church kind of being desecrated by zombies. So now to see the ramifications of that happening are extremely cool. I will say this movie is paced really, really well, and I find it to be a really good think piece. Does it have the same visceral pull that 28 Years Later has? I'm not sure. I would at this point say no, but I still thoroughly enjoyed my time at the theater and really would recommend this film to anyone who is interested in the genre or beyond. 28 Years Later and now 28 Years Later Bone Temple are both films in which I don't think you need to just be a horror fan or just a zombie fan to enjoy. I think just a traditional moviegoer can understand the depth of these films and go, it's not just a classic, zombie bite, zombie rip, movie. It's not what these movies are. And Bone Temple is really, really an examination of the human condition under extreme circumstances, but in a sense of how they live their lives, as opposed to putting them in extreme circumstance and putting them in a pressure cooker. It's far more of what does days, weeks, years of time being put in this scenario do to a human. And it's a really cool story to follow, and one I would highly, highly recommend. Plus, if you are a fan of the franchise, I want to let you know very and very important last scene that you're going to get in the movie, but I'm not going to spoil anything in there. I'm just going to say it's pretty fucking cool, and I would recommend going to see this movie, and I hope you do. So please go do that. Go to the theater, go spend your money, and go check out this movie. I highly recommend it. Now, for this service, if you could, not going to make you, but if you could, give a like, a comment, a subscribe for the review. It would certainly help. If you want to catch out more reviews, check our YouTube channel or go check Spotify, and it'll all be under. You can always find it under the Wisco Movie Watchers podcast or just the Wisco Movie Watchers. Go find it where you can. If you want to get more content from us, if you even are in a horror mood, we're currently doing a lot of great horror games over on twitch.tv. It's all under PT Creative currently at twitch.tv/PTE_creative. Just finished Resident Evil 7, and we're playing Resident Evil 8 in the coming minutes, actually. So go check that out if you are interested, and go check out the rest of our work. It would be certainly appreciated. So like, comment, subscribe, and help us out with those algorithms. It'd be super appreciated. That's going to do it, folks. Thank you so much for watching, listening, wherever you are. Go enjoy a great movie, perhaps even 28 years later, Bone Temple. Peace, love, and hugs. Goodbye!